Happy Friday and welcome to The Breakdown. We are all of 18 days away, and I am Tara Setmayer, and this is the Rick Wilson, and we are 2.5 weeks, folks, 18 whole days away, and we're a little looser here on Friday nights. So at the end of another long week, frankly, we are all exhausted, some more than others. So cheers to all of you. When we started last Friday, we decided to make Fridays where you can kick back, grab a beverage, drink with us as we go through the week's events, and we play a little drinking game. So here we go. If Donald Trump tweets during this hour, take a sip. If there is an animal sighting in someone's shot, also known as my cat Tiki, but any animal shows up in a shot, feel free to take a drink. And if there are any indictments or major breaking news on a Friday night, which we have become accustomed to in the past, feel free, to Rick Wilson's point, to take a double shot. So that's our game for tonight. Welcome, play along. There are no prizes. A little later, we'll be joined by Lincoln Project co-founder Rudy Galen, and someone you don't see too often. He's behind the scenes, but he's part of our communications shop, and that is the Nate Nesbit. He'll be joining us for the first time on The Breakdown a little bit later. We'll be trying to figure out what was Donald Trump trying to accomplish last night by yelling at Savannah Guthrie during his town hall. So, as always, we want to hear from you. You can tweet us at #AskTheBreakdown, or you can go old school and call us and leave us a voicemail. And as we debuted last week as well, we have live-in callers. You are welcome to Zoom meeting us. We'll put up the Zoom meeting ID where you can, there it is, where you can sign into Zoom and possibly get your question on air with us as a live caller. So we'll go through that later on in the show. So everyone reach out to us because we really want to make sure that we get to your questions tonight because it's Friday. So Rick, here we are. It's another week gone by, another week of craziness. We've had town halls. We've had, just all kinds of nutty things going on. And last night's town hall, there was a lot happening. We got a snippet of it because it happened. It overlapped with our show. But let's just say that there was a significant contrast between the two town halls in style, substance, demeanor, maturity, intellect, sanity, basically everything. Let's run the recap.
Both candidates went at it last night, just not in the same room.
These two town halls were as different as the candidates themselves.
Let's talk about the event that was held at the White House. People were not wearing masks. 13 people connected to that event tested positive. Shouldn't you have known better?
Just the other day, they came out with a statement that 85% of the people that wear masks catch it. So,
they didn't say that. I know that study.
That's what I heard, and that's what I saw.
When a president doesn't wear a mask or makes fun of folks like me when I was wearing a mask for a long time, then, people say, well, it mustn't be that important. The words of a president matter.
Just this week, you retweeted to your 87 million followers a conspiracy theory that Joe Biden orchestrated to have SEAL Team 6, the Navy SEAL Team 6, killed to cover up the fake death of bin Laden. Now, why would you send a lie like that to your followers? You retweeted it.
That was a retweet. That was an opinion of somebody, and that was a retweet. I'll put it out there. People can decide for themselves. I don't take a position.
You're not like someone's crazy uncle who can just retweet whatever.
When I said I was running because I wanted to unify the country, people said, well, they were the old days. We better be able to do it again. We got to heal this nation because we have the greatest opportunity of any country in the world to own the 21st century, and we can't do it divided.
Every review of last night that came out had one big consonant note. Donald Trump looked crazed, nervous, off his game. He was sitting in the chair. His body language looked like he was ready to flee the scene of a crime like Brad Parscale. And Joe Biden was there, confident, cool, collected, arguing about with folks about his in an articulate and present way about what he would be doing on different policy issues. how he's going to heal this country, how he's going to face the COVID problem, how he's going to restore the economy. And all that would have been enough to make Donald Trump curl up in a fetal position on Air Force One this morning. All that would have been enough to make him have a huge sad. What really killed Donald Trump after last night was that Joe Biden pulled gigantically larger ratings. Nothing breaks Donald Trump's heart more than having bad ratings. And Mr. President, you are the ratings loser. It was a ridiculously unmitigated ratings disaster for you. Your sweaty, weird, verbal Lagoria last night was nothing compared to the fact that Joe Biden stomped you in the ratings. And I think that if you were in the White House today or on Air Force One today traveling with the president, you did not want to be the one who brought him that news, because it was not going to be pretty. So with that, the rolling disaster of Trump moves on.
Let me say something really quick about that too. Donald Trump not only lost those ratings, but NBC had multiple platforms where Joe Biden was only on ABC, which was one station, that's it. This was combined online, on MSNBC, on CNBC, and on network NBC. And Donald Trump lost by a lot. It wasn't even close. And he ran out of there after an hour because he couldn't take the heat anymore. And Joe Biden, he went the longer. I think he went 90 minutes and then stayed afterward and talked to people who didn't have a chance to ask their questions in the town hall format on air, including one of my old college friends who I went to GW with, who I recognized in a still photograph and said, "Is that a Koshua?" And sure enough, it was her. And I haven't seen her in 20 years except for Facebook. And it was very cool to see her get her question in. And she was thrilled with the way Biden showed compassion. He listened. And apparently, he had the stamina to handle the town hall that long. So even more things.
And there's a phrase Donald Trump hates. There's a phrase Donald Trump loves to hate, is stamina. Because Joe Biden clearly had enough stamina there to keep going. I mean, I think Biden could have gone on. He could have gone longer. But Trump was a sweaty mess by the time he left the stage. And one of my White House people made an interesting point and said to me that Donald Trump's like heartbreak moment would be what the ratings were, but also that Drudge headline that said Savannah Guthrie kept him on a leash.
I saw it because we all know how much Donald Trump.
That's because she dog walked his ass.
Yes. To steal a phrase from Cardi B, Rick Wilson, you're so hip and on trend, my friend.
Yes, I did steal a phrase from Cardi B.
We are hip and on trend here at the Lincoln Project. We may have to add that to our drinking game. Anytime Rick Wilson makes a cultural reference, a pop culture reference, that's not from 1980, we'll take a drink. Oh my God.
Or 1880 for that matter.
This is true. Oh my gosh. So you were talking about your White House contacts, and I don't know if you saw that scoop by Jonathan Swan. The knives are out.
Delicious.
The knives are out.
Delicious.
People, is it just that time of year?
Folks, today it is. It's it's that sort of pumpkin spice latte, Ugg boots, sweaters, and betrayal in the Trump campaign. It all comes together in one beautiful autumnal moment. But those people, I mean, folks, if you haven't read the Axios piece yet by Jonathan Swan this morning, the knives, as Tara said, are fully out. They're stabbing Bill Stepien in the back. Bill Stepien's stabbing the president in the front. It is, everybody's playing the blame game. They're all trying to be the one who escapes from the campaign saying, "Oh, if only they'd listened to me, we would have won." No.
They haven't even lost yet, and they're already pointing fingers. That's how you know they know it's over.
They're all questioning the strategy because there is no strategy. They keep using the word optionality, which is a very McKinsey-esque kind of buzzword right now. But there was optionality a year or two ago when Trump could have settled down and been a grown-ass candidate. But he won't and he can't. So they can pretend that they've got all this chessboard stuff going on, but the early voting is rolling in. They're terrified. The money is not rolling in. They're terrified. And by the way, that 235 or 238 or whatever it was they raised, I heard today what they did was delay the billing. The cost of the money was 50%. They have a third or less of Biden's resources on hand for the last 17 days. So the backstabbing is glorious. It's going to get worse. That you could tell Jared and Jason Miller and Stepien were all trying to stab each other and all trying to avoid the wrath of Don. And while they may not make a lot of changes in the campaign at this late stage of the game, you do not want to go into that building without a food taster and a Kevlar vest. It is ugly.
Isn't that every day, though, in this administration? I mean, it's really not that much different from day one. It's always kind of been that way. It's been a bunch of sharks in a shark tank, and it's just worse now.
Crabs in a bucket.
Yeah, it's more pronounced now because they see their impending demise, and it's glorious.
The one thing Trump still has is his robust good health and his handsome good looks. I mean,
good evening, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
I have to say, you have a great smile. When you smile. Okay.
You're never fully dressed without a smile. I couldn't believe that woman last night. And apparently she was a Trump supporter. I mean, she was a Biden supporter or
oh, you think?
Yeah, no, I didn't mean Trump. I meant she was like a Biden supporter, and she was like trying to say that, you look better when you smile. But it was so weird. The whole thing was absurd. And the internet went nuts over that one. And of course, we could never let that go.
I'm never letting, no.
We can never let that go. We're going to move on now and bring in our guest, because something else that Donald Trump always has with him is his good pal, Rudy Giuliani. And there's been some news about him today. And our next guest is the perfect person to talk about that. Let's bring him in. Segue. John Sipher, he is our guest tonight. And in 2014, after 28 years with the CIA as a clandestine officer, he retired. He served in Moscow, where he was the CIA's Russia operations chief there. He's a recipient of the CIA's Distinguished Career Intelligence Medal. He's the founder of Spycraft Entertainment, and he is a senior advisor to the Lincoln Project, because only the best for us. John Sipher, welcome.
My pleasure. Thank you.
For those who don't know what it means to be part of the clandestine service, that means he was a spy. So, John, you've spoken out for years and about Trump's attacks on our intelligence community. He talks about the deep state. He one of the first things he did was completely disrespect the CIA. His couple days in office, he went and spoke at CIA headquarters in front of the memorial wall there and gave a completely political speech, which was incredibly disrespectful. I mean, he has set the tone from the beginning with his attacks on the intelligence community, stood there next to Putin in 2018 in Helsinki and said he believed Putin over our intelligence community. God knows who he owes money to. I mean, as a career CIA officer, what has it been like for you sitting back watching this entire ordeal with someone like the President of the United States potentially being a compromised national security risk sitting in the White House?
Well, intelligence professionals, they don't need the president to necessarily love them or respect them, but they don't want that to be public because our allies and the people that might risk their lives to work for us are watching. And therefore, those kind of actions can really harm our national security, even if he doesn't like us. And perhaps worse is he's turned the intelligence community, just like he has the FBI and Justice Department, into sort of its own personal political weapon. And that does real long-term damage to the intelligence community. If people believe in the, future presidents, future policymakers, that the intelligence community is really nothing but a political weapon, that you can put people, sort of political toadies in charge, like Radcliffe or Gannell or one of those kind of people. And then they're just going to sort of dig through the millions of pages of information that comes in the United States every day and pick out nuggets to give the president to attack his political enemies. That might make them feel good for a day, but there's absolutely nobody who's going to want to work for us, going to want to spy for us around the world, our allies or people who are risking their lives to work for us.
Right. I mean, John, I think that's something that go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rick.
John, I mean, I think that's something that a lot of Americans don't really fully understand, is that the way that folks like you who work clandestine services in Moscow under the toughest possible conditions, there had to be a level of trust, not just in you or the officers in the field doing the recruiting, but it also had to have a level of trust that America was going to have certain values and that America represented something in the world. I think you probably share my view that is largely collapsed right now. It's really tough for folks to say, hey, if I feed the U.S. vital intelligence material, it won't necessarily get back to Putin. I think it seems like a much different environment than it would have under any other president in the last 100 years.
Oh, absolutely right. And it's also, Russia's a good example in terms of, if you look back at Soviet history, the Russians and Soviets are a conspiratorial group, and they put massive effort into their intelligence and security services, much more than countries in the West, and they get involved in subversion as well as intelligence collection. And for years and years, they were much better at it than us because that's what they do. I'm sorry. But the thing that allows America to be as successful as it is in the intelligence front is that we represent something. There's people or countries around the world that see their leaders as corrupt. They see their system as corrupt, and they see the United States as something special. And therefore, they're willing to work with us because they see us that way. And frankly, if we lose that, if we just become like another one of these corrupt countries where the new leaders come in and their job is just to steal, then we're not going to be as successful. And that important intelligence that might keep Americans safe is not coming our way. So, Rick, I agree with it totally.
John, that's actually, you brought up Russia and that, and it as Pelosi said, all roads seem to lead to Russia when it comes to Donald Trump. And with Donald Trump, all roads seem to lead to Russia through Rudy Giuliani lately. There is a story today in the Washington Post talking about how the White House was warned over a year ago that Rudy Giuliani was being used as a wittingly or unwittingly, as part of a Russian disinformation operation, and to be very, very leery of any information that Rudy Giuliani brings back from Ukraine. What did the White House do with this information? They shrugged it off. Donald Trump was like, whatever, that's Rudy, which is what they're quoted in saying in the Washington Post. That is insane. And as someone who spent their life in the intelligence community, can you explain why what Rudy Giuliani has done in the Ukraine is something that the American people should care about, since he's bringing all this information, trying to exposed Hunter Biden and Joe Biden? This is all part of a big Russian disinformation campaign. Can you please explain to people why Ukraine is such a hot spot for intelligence and why we need to be very, very careful believing anything that comes out of Rudy Giuliani's mouth at this point?
Well, that article was if we hadn't seen what we've seen for the past 2 years, would have been an amazing slap in the face. The fact that the intelligence community warned the White House specifically of this, and the fact that Rudy Giuliani and his enablers were able to try to pull this together and throw it out in October for their October surprise is essentially what I was talking about before. You politicized all of the institutions of the U.S. government that see themselves as public servants working for the American people. So if these places are just seen as playthings for presidents, we're not going to get the best and brightest working for these organizations. I can't say as I understand Rudy Giuliani. The president obviously doesn't care about what people tell him. It was like the town hall last night where he started talking about QAnon and things. And he often does this, say, I don't know anything about the Proud Boys. I don't know anything about QAnon. Listen, he has the largest group of experts and apparatus the world has ever seen working for him. He has people telling him these things, providing him real information and truth, and he refuses to take it on. And it's not because people aren't telling him, it's because he has his own personal interests at heart, and he only wants to hear things that can help him personally, either enrich himself or help his political thing. And the thing is, why spend billions on a world-class intelligence service? Why spend billions on a world-class law enforcement operation if no one is going to listen, if the president is just going to throw it all away? So it is a slap in the face. Those people are professionals. They're trying to keep America safe. They're trying to work for the American people, and they're going to continue to do so. But another 4 years, you're going to start to get more and more boneheads like they've been bringing in, and it's just going to dig deeper into those institutions. And a lot of people, because it's secret, they don't understand. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of people who are working really hard day and night in places away from their families, and they're not going to keep doing that if it's a waste of time.
I just have one quick follow-up with that.
You mean Rich? You mean Rich Grinnell and John Ratcliffe aren't awe-inspiring leaders in the intelligence community?
Yeah.
No, they're not.
Gosh. With no experience whatsoever in the intelligence community, which is a departure from the institutional normal norms of those positions. I just wanted to follow up with you on that. Speaking of institutional norms and things that we normally would see. So in the past, we've had experienced intelligence officers, people who take this seriously, do not politicize their jobs and what they're doing. And the Russians have seen an opening in the way that this administration has decided to handle intelligence. Can you explain, just give an example? Because I don't think the American people really understand some of the tactics that the Russians use. We hear this, it's a disinformation campaign or it's a Russian intel operation. Describe a little bit about what you've seen happen here that is classic Russian intel operation, so that the American people, when they hear these stories and they see it, they go, that's the damn Russians again. Because I know that they repeat this over and over again. There's not really anything new to what they're doing. They've been doing these kinds of things, meddling and these different kinds of fakeries and propaganda. Maybe just technology makes it a little bit different, but just give an example so the American people can understand. That's the damn Russians.
Go back, Tara. Go back 150 years. What we're seeing with QAnon is essentially this recreation of these anti-Semitic and sort of crazy conspiracy tropes pushed together. The Russian czars in the late 19th century created a thing called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And it was a disinformation campaign. It was a fake booklet was put out, and it was meant to be a story of Jewish leaders trying to take over the world. And it was used as an anti-Semitic thing to undercut Jewish groups. And it's still to this day used by groups in the Middle East. And it's a disinformation, a forgery that it's continued all the way through. And so the Russians have been playing these games of subversion, sowing chaos. They're a weaker country trying to use, like a terrorist group, find weaknesses in our system and exploit them and amplify them. And we saw that in 2016. The internet and social media allows them to weaponize this kind of information much more effectively than in the past, where they would have to put articles in newspapers and magazines to get that kind of disinformation into our system. And there's different reasons for it. Certainly they want Donald Trump to win, and they want to hurt Joe Biden. Even if Joe Biden wins, they want to hurt a Joe Biden administration. But they also want to just sow chaos. They want a weak America. They want an America where we turn inward and attack each other. And so the kind of things we're seeing, frankly, it's not hard to do anymore. The president of the United States is serving it to him on a platter. He's sending people like Rudy Giuliani over to Ukraine. And for the Russians, it's like a cat playing with a mouse. Just, you got an idiot there looking for anything that fits his preconceived ideas, and they can just serve it right up to him. You have a president of the United States who's putting out false and crazy information and frankly, Russian talking points. It is a term of art in Russia in the Soviet Bolshevik days called useful idiot, like a fellow traveler. These are people who essentially will mouth communist or Russian propaganda, and whether they know it or not, it doesn't matter to the Russians. They want that to get out there. And so they have a useful idiot in the White House.
John, it's that acronym from the intelligence world of MICE, which people don't really know. Money, ideology, compromise, and ego. Rudy Giuliani is every single one of those things. A great intelligence officer can recruit somebody on one of those points. Rudy has all of those exposures. It's crazy.
Usually when we recruit looking for sources overseas, the one thing we're careful is not to look for people who are too stupid to keep themselves safe. And so the problem with Rudy is he may be an effective source for the Russians, but he's such an idiot that he's essentially explaining what he's doing to the American people. And so it might be effective for them for the short term, but in the long term, he's either likely to get himself killed by, Russian criminal organizations or find himself in jail or something. But he's not a impressive man.
Can you even believe that we're having this conversation? I mean, Rick, you worked for Giuliani years ago when he was, the mayor of New York days, where, America's mayor. And here we are 20 plus years later talking about the possibility of the president of the United States personal lawyer getting whacked by Russian mafia because he's in bed with them as a useful idiot for Russian propaganda in an intelligence operation to sow chaos and take down American democracy. On that note, I think we should all take a drink, including John Sipher, who has a nice bourbon on a Friday, and Trump tweeted. John Sipher, thank you so much. We'll have you back.
Thank you, John. We'll see you soon.
My pleasure, you guys. Thanks so much.
Oh my God. I got to take a drink after that. All right. Next up, I think it's good. It's good. A good time to bring in our fellow Lincoln Project brethren, Reed Galen and Nate Nesbit. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Nate. Hey, Reed. Hey, everybody, before we start, I just want to make a note. Reed and I are maskless at the table because we are living in a very tight COVID bubble right now. We are tested constantly. We have things shoved up our nose way too often. We keep ourselves very much in this tight little bubble.
It's like being in Big Lights, Bright City.
It kind of is. It kind of is. And we take it very seriously. And we encourage all of you to take it very seriously because COVID is nothing to fool with. And the case rates are exploding around the country right now. I just wanted to make that point. When people see us maskless, it's because we spend entirely too many hours waiting to have our diagnostic people test us, and we keep ourselves very isolated in our bubble right now.
COVID free as of this morning.
Same here. Again. We keep it as tightly wound as we can, folks, and we encourage you folks to do the same because we are having a spike right now across the country, and it is nothing to fool with. So,
Rick, I think you should be clear that what you have shoved up your nose on a regular basis is certainly not the same thing as Donald Trump Jr.
No, it's a one-way headed out probe from our medical testing firm.
It's for medical purposes.
No.
That was a low blow.
No, Don Jr. does not hang out with us.
No. Yeah, but Nate, I can do better.
Please do. Rick, please do.
I can go lower. Trust me on this. I can always
Absolutely.
go lower.
They deserve it.
So, Rick, I heard that you found yourself on a list today. Speaking of going lower.
Well, it wasn't just me. It was the entire Lincoln Project. We found out today that in Maine, there are 2 candidates for state office, state House of Representatives or state assembly, whatever it is, who are being funded by Susan Collins. And they're both QAnon people. One of them, a guy named Kevin Bushman, is he runs a QAnon church, which I got to say, folks, you want to take the QAnon thing up to a whole nother level. This guy's church is quite something. But the Lincoln Project is on their list of people, and I think we have a video element of the list somewhere here. The immediate death, dismantling, and destruction. So they go through a whole long list. Woo! We're above the Illuminati, but below the Muslim Brotherhood. Listen, this is like the Sweet 16 of crazy, okay? We are going to make it to the Final Four. By the time this is over, the Muslim Brotherhood's going to be in the rearview mirror with the Illuminati and the Clinton Foundation.
We had a tough playing game, but we're feeling really good about it.
We really are. We're gonna execute. We're really going to execute. And but folks, all kidding aside, this is one of those things that's infected the Republican Party to the point where a supposed moderate like Susan Collins, a supposed centrist like Susan Collins, is using her political action committee to fund people who are putting the Lincoln Project on a death list because QAnon told them to. look, I don't hold these people responsible for their insanity. They're crazy people. But I hold Susan Collins responsible for giving money to individuals, one of whom has a death list of people, and that death list is not just us. It's a whole bunch of other groups in the left and the center, and their manifestos are so completely full of the language of death, destruction. We're going to strip them of their lives and their power. This is a problem that we are underestimating as a country right now. How deeply QAnon is infecting this country.
Well, and it's not just Susan Collins, but we see this week too that in Georgia, Kelly Loeffler and Doug Collins both were vying for the endorsement of Marjorie Taylor Greene,
the QAnon
congressional candidate, who she will win her race.
Yep.
Loeffler was down with her, I think yesterday, having a rally, and so now you see that. You think that the Q folks aren't going to come to Loeffler if she gets reelected and say, you better be with us. Yeah. So now, you could have not one, but two Republican senators who now have like the stain of QAnon in the United States Senate. I mean, it's beyond me. I mean, I cannot believe, I guess I can, because why not?
It's 2020.
Right. It's 2020. But the idea, Collins is a jellyfish. So I guess that doesn't make that doesn't surprise me that much. She'll do whatever she can. Loeffler, I think, has shown herself since the moment she was sworn into the office. Remember, she was appointed. She didn't get elected to anything.
Right.
To be a person without any sort of moral core or fulcrum around which she spins that has any sort of goodness or public service or commitment to others. Her own WNBA team loathes her. They hate her. She bought an airplane so she could go see her constituents more often, which I'm sure they greatly appreciate. And her husband, I think, owns a couple of stock exchanges. So she's not exactly what I'd call a person of the people.
Nate, you're out there on the front lines doing a lot of our communications work for the Lincoln Project, a lot of the press work. You're seeing this stuff every day too, aren't you? It's infected what was the Republican Party.
I think it's everywhere. I think there's no way to avoid it at this point, and it's taken them to a new low. I think they're desperate, they're crazed, they're cornered, they're getting antagonistic, and they have no clear agenda to win. And so I think they're lashing out in any way they can to undermine what Biden's doing on his side.
Nate, did you see what David Perdue did at the rally with Trump today, where he intentionally he mispronounced Kamala Harris's name, in a way that I think it would be hard to call it anything other than having a racial insult. And remember George Allen? Remember back in 2004? And so Nate, I think you're absolutely right. I think that these folks have decided that they have very few people left that they're going to bring across the line to them. So they are I hate to use this expression, the true colors of these people have come out. And it is uglier and uglier. Stewart wrote in his book, It Was All a Lie. It was maybe the biggest lie any of us ever fell for. And we're seeing it more and more every day with 18 days to go.
I think they fell into a trap. Trump convinced them of a base that we now see is shrinking, and they have nowhere else to go. They can't appeal to their voters any more strongly than they are. And what that's going to require is just dirty mudslinging. It's going to be an ugly game going on.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Nate. I think you're exactly right. It's going to keep, and it feeds only into their propaganda network. It feeds only into their little bubble that they're in. They're in a COVID bubble too, but it's one where they're infecting each other. And we look at the underpinnings of what that base feeds off of. Cat sighting.
Drink.
Oh.
Nate, you've got a beverage.
Are we
cats in.
Are we doing pets?
It's part of the game.
Yes, we are. We're doing pets.
It's tiki time.
It's tiki time.
Tiki time. I love it. It's awesome.
I had no idea that was happening.
That is awesome.
That is awesome. I just want to give a shout out to the crew. I love you guys. Our production crew is the best.
Tiki demands to be on camera.
It's
right,
unbelievable.
Tiki's a star.
Tiki will not be denied.
I tell
Tiki's
you.
gonna have a rider in his contract.
Right. You better move up from Fancy Feast.
Oh my gosh, Tiki, you're famous. Oh my God.
Speaking of the propaganda hellscape, let's roll a new LP some new LP stuff on Trump TV. Have a little fun with that.
I may say, you are everything is advertised.
Are you having fun in this
You're
job?
one of the most loved and respected.
I would say that also.
Your ability, your successes.
The greatest president of our lifetime.
The historic president of our modern era.
What do people not understand about these a little bit different than most people?
That he loves meatloaf.
Wow, it's pretty impressive, all the things that he's done in his life.
Trump is an apex predator.
He has given up everything, as has his family.
He's the Lion King.
He hasn't done anything illegal.
Right over there is your hotel. It's a beautiful hotel.
President Trump has never misled or distorted the truth.
What does it say about the media?
You know,
I agree with you.
The teachers' unions are like Orville Faubus and George Wallace.
Destroy the child.
Not allowing our little kids to go to school.
And the president himself, it's not the same thing as what happened to George Floyd, but it's horrific.
Demons.
He was a victim of crooked cops.
We do have a rather serious issue with public defecation.
Crap!
Trump is the bodyguard of Western civilization.
Not all cultures are equal.
Why are we having all these people from whole countries?
Our civilization is superior. What's wrong with saying that?
He didn't give it a chance.
Certainly Haitian immigrants agree with him.
Yeah, he wasn't giving it.
That's why they moved here.
So you have no idea. I have no idea.
But I feel like there's nothing any of us can say right now without being judged.
I love women, but they're extremely primitive.
Corrupt them all.
I don't even know what white nationalism means.
Semi-literate, primitive monkey.
You know, you're an ass. I've had about enough.
You Satanists want to sacrifice the West.
We're not racist.
Everybody gets a safe space except the white man.
You're a real punk.
Demographic replacement. We're going to replace you.
You will not replace us. Serious crap.
The best
This is stupid.
is yet. There is a cleansing needed to come.
We're not going to lie to you. That was untrue.
Bravo.
I think that I can't speak for Rick, but I think the hardest part of probably producing that ad was trying to figure out, like, of the 8.
Oh, it could have been like a 4-hour. The supercut. It's 4 hours long at least.
This is what we're dealing with, though.
The crazy level is just sky high.
Through the roof.
It really is.
You know,
it really is.
People don't understand that.
It is, and it is.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, people don't understand that this is what's going on.
No, I was just going to say it. Right.
Yeah, they're in a bubble. They hear that stuff every day. They're told that is the reality of the world.
Right.
And so then we shouldn't be as shocked that they fall for stuff like QAnon. Nate, you were saying something?
No, I was saying it's an echo chamber. Just agreeing with you on it.
Yeah, no, it really is.
And I think it's an echo chamber that's shrinking and getting louder and talking to less and less people. And I think you start to see that. I think after Trump's town hall last night, where less people watched that across multiple networks than did the vice presidents, is I think the country's ready to turn the page. I think Josh Khrushchev of National Journal said this might be a leading indicator of election day. Obviously, we're seeing incredibly enthusiastic crowds for early voting, massive numbers for mail ballots coming in. I don't think any of that probably portends well for the president.
No,
obviously we shouldn't take anything for granted, but certainly it looks like things are headed against him, and we should expect in the next 17 days that he will be more nuts with every coming day. Not reality has never touched his really in the inner sense of
weird little brain.
Right. So.
And as we were talking about before you came on the set, this is a guy who his own campaign staff in the Axios article today. It's a knife fight for who's going to take the blame. The blame storming in that article was truly remarkable. And Bill Stepien's clearly stabbing Jason Miller in the back, and Jason Miller stabbing Jared, and it's this circular.
I like to call it the pre-mortem.
It is a pre-mortem.
They haven't died yet, but they're on their way.
They're dead, but they're too done to lay down and start stinking.
And then there was this story today in the Washington Post about what are all these people in the Trump administration and Trump campaign going to do if he loses. And I had to say, like, why do I care, nor why does anybody? Like, these people made their beds. Like, they knew exactly what they were running.
Yeah, they're going to be.
Why should we feel bad for them?
Right. I don't have any mercy at all for them. Would you like that in a loafer or a pump? Would you like extra hot sauce with your gordita? I mean, that's where they're headed.
We actually officially got a snort out of Reed Galen on live television, which
I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. to the point, like, Nate, what is their closing argument, right? We see how the state of affairs now is the country's going to hell in a handbasket. We have 218,000 dead Americans. We have 100 million people out of the workforce. Pfizer now has announced that the vaccine, the cure, will not be ready before Election Day, the way Trump promised.
Not at all.
And they don't have a closing argument. What is it? We looked at the town hall last night. What is it? How do they turn this around?
I don't think they have one. There's no way to turn it around. I think he's finding it increasingly difficult to hide his tyrannical desires. He has no clear agenda. They have no plan. There's no interest in healing the country or solving COVID. And it's become clear that the only chance they have is a very outside one of just underhanded voter suppression tactics. And that's what they're going to use to secure a win or attempt to do so. And anything outside of that is out of the question at this point. I think he knows he's lost. And he's hoping that by delivering the Supreme Court and by stacking it in the fashion that he's doing in this last minute manner, that he's going to be able to secure himself some sort of disputed win.
I think that's right, Nate. I think that's I mean, look, you saw the flailing last night.
Oh, yeah.
The flailing will get worse, as Reed said. It will get louder and crazier. He will throw more shit against the wall every day. But at the end of it, there's not much there anymore. There's no argument for Trumpism underneath this. There's no rationale, and there's no like surprise in the second term. Remember, Nixon's re-election campaign in 1972, he had a secret plan to win the war. Trump doesn't even bother to lie and say he has a secret plan to act like a sane person. It's just not there. There's nothing about the act. And as somebody said last night, people were tuning into NBC as we did to watch the train wreck.
Right.
They tuned into ABC to watch the future.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, I always like to think of Bugs Bunny. Right.
Yeah.
I like to think of Bugs Bunny cartoons that I grew up on as sort of most of the fonts of wisdom. And I feel like that what Trump has now asked his supporters to do, metaphorically, of course, is to go up in the airplane with the parachute. And they have jumped out of the plane only to find either kitchen utensils or an anvil.
Right.
Has been packed for them. And so I think that, we're at that point. But hey, just real quick, let me just take over. So, hey, Nate, you had a piece that you published in Rolling Stone here recently.
Terrific. Which
was just awesome. Really just a terrific piece. So can you give everybody watching a little bit of flavor of and I hope everybody will get that, Nate Nesbitt in Rolling Stone. We give everybody a little bit of flavor of, obviously there was just an enormous amount of passion in the writing that just came through to me anyway. So can you give everybody a little sense of what you were feeling when you were writing that?
Yeah, I think it was a outsized feeling of angst and desperation and hopelessness. And I think, one of the things I learned, I think, working in politics is sometimes we get strapped into our singular understandings or our very closed-minded understandings of the American populace. And we think it looks like us and it feels like us. And I think I wanted to share with the world what this moment felt like for me. As a Black man, as a decently accomplished Black man, as a person going through this pandemic, and then kind of going through in my mind, it seemed almost incremental and sequential, just the tragic deaths, the killings of people who looked like me and who had my lived experience. And it just culminated in me not being able to sleep at night some nights. I had to get it out of my body. And so I wrote this piece, and I wanted to convey to both the folks that have a similar experience to mine and to those that don't, what I felt in this moment and what I think the country needs to do.
Yeah, Nate, it was a truly powerful piece, and I am so glad you got it out there. And I do, as Reed said, I encourage folks to check it out. It's in Rolling Stone. Nate Nesbitt, really an amazing piece. And Nate is a vital part of our communications world and helps the Lincoln Project every day push our message out there.
I don't know, Nate. I don't know that there's anybody that's been around with us longer than you have. I think you were with us starting in December, right?
I think Nate was.
So you've got as much gray hair as anybody.
I shaved all of mine off.
And that lack of sleep, man.
Right.
wanted to ask you something about that Rolling Stone piece because you were talking to me about it as you were deciding to do it, and we talked about it, and I was really glad that you finally did. How I think it's important for people to understand, because what we see going on, the racial reckoning in this country, is something we haven't really seen since the 60s. And what made your piece provocative was because you spoke directly to not only your experience as a Black man in America, but you also asked the question, what else do you want from me, white America? Which I think can make people uncomfortable, because there's still people out there who say, well, racism doesn't exist, or there's only a couple of bad apples, and they are clueless as to what it's like to go through those experiences. What was the final straw for you where you felt that you needed to get this out there to the world to hear and express your feelings, and why you felt it was important that white America reads this too?
I think the final straw was Jacob Blake. I think that I got to a point where I knew I needed to put something out and express myself after, just the deaths of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and a few others. George Floyd in particular was gruesome and graphic in a fashion that I'd never seen. But I think I spoke about this in the piece, where I hoped that it was just a passing moment. It was just a fleeting moment in time, and that there would be a return to some sort of normalcy, some semblance of that at least. And I think what Jacob Blake did was it brought me back to that period of shock and just trauma, just very visceral trauma. And it was after Jacob Blake that I said, I can't sit on this any longer. I have to put this out there. And I think it was like you said, a call to white America. I noted somewhere in the piece, we've done everything we've been asked to do. We've marched peacefully. We've spoken out. We've done just about everything one can do to achieve freedom in this country. And it reminds me of a passage in Souls of Black Folk, where Du Bois talks about just the measures African Americans have taken in order to achieve the freedom that was supposedly promised. And I think that was the reckoning that I had in this moment, a real doubt whether or not that freedom could be achieved, and a real questioning that I couldn't keep to myself any longer.
So, Nate, what would you say? I mean, I think in the context of how I view politics, I feel like that a lot of attention, is directed towards African American women and the energy that they did, show in the 2018 midterms, and I think they'll show it again this year. But I do feel like that African American men, especially young African American men, are almost completely left out of the political conversation. So if you could, and I think that what you wrote is the beginning of that conversation, but certainly, just the first step in it. What would you say, to young Black men in this country about getting involved? Whereas you talked about, what else can you ask of us? I think Doc Rivers said something very similar in his heartfelt remarks when they were asking him. I think that was just after Blake as well. Yeah. So what would you say to those young Black men who feel like the country's either against them, has left them behind, or doesn't offer them anything to participate?
Yeah. Well, I think that participation shouldn't necessarily be on that basis. And I think that's what Doc Rivers was trying to convey. I think there's a desperation in this moment that supersedes party, and it supersedes kind of what you've held as age-old wisdom. I think what you battle in particular with Black men in this country, and young Black men, is a level of apathy that most people, unless you've worked in politics and knocked a door or held a town hall or worked with voters, you don't get to see. But when you're moving through the Baltimores and the Detroits and the Milwaukees, these different areas of this country, you see apathetic men, people who don't believe the country has anything for them and is interested in them outside of the way they've been used in this political system, whether it's the criminal justice system or different manners. I think right now we're at a point where to sit and not vote is almost criminal. And so I think it's an existential crisis. Like Tara said, it harkens back to days of segregation and Jim Crow, and greater issues. And I think they have to vote. We have to vote. You must feel compelled to do so. Almost just out of desperation. And then from there, we can decide and we can figure out what the next movement and action will be in regards to the progress we seek in this country.
It's awesome.
Powerful.
Well, we're glad to have you, Nate. And I mean,
Thank
I know
you.
that, as we move forward here past election day, we're gonna get rid of this big vampire, right? And then there'll be some other vampires. But I think that
Absolutely.
something that we've started talking about is what we look for in the next piece is, I think, Tara, this country needs a fundamental reset on voting rights and civil rights. The fundamental foundations of democracy that I think Nate was talking about, where if you don't feel like the country matters, you won't participate. I think that's certainly true of the the communities that Nate is talking about, your own community. But I think it's writ large too, which is why I think we end up with someone like the way whom we've ended up with.
Sure.
But I think what Biden represents in his own way is a bridge to the future, right? He's obviously pretty old guy, but he's going to give us, I think, those chances to have those conversations in a way that I hope is not in a superheated, cauldron of ugliness and despair that Trump lived on. Frankly, he lived on.
It was his fuel.
It is his fuel.
Yeah.
I mean, he can't do anything else.
And I think that point is very well put. And Nate, that was very well put about the feeling of that the country doesn't give a damn.
Yeah.
And I think if we start to address the things on the civil rights front, the voting rights front, and those things are so fundamental, because if there are whole swaths of society that don't feel like they've got a stake in the game, then they're not going to participate. They're not going to be out there. They're not going to vote. They're not going to voice the needs in their community. And you're going to end up with a country that's more balkanized, more segregated amongst religious and ethnic, and that's doom for a propositional republic like ours.
Right.
It's the dead end and the failure mode unless we fix those problems, and then people start to have a stake in the game and a hand at the table, regardless of circumstance and race and religious and ethnic background. Those things are so fundamental, I think, that they transcend a lot of the policy fights that Washington would love to have. You could argue all day about parts per billion of carbon in the atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
If you've got 60 million Americans who don't feel like they have a stake in the game, your country's broken.
Well, I've also said if you don't have to start your car to go to work, you're worried less about what comes out of the tailpipe.
Exactly.
No, and look, I think, this is the one thing, too, that I think has been so amazing about what we've seen over these last 10 months, that Nate's been with us on this ride since the get-go, is I think that there is for all of the hard-hitting stuff we do, and for all of the shots we take at people, I think all deserved, there is a strong optimism in this, which is we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't think it mattered. Right. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't think getting this bozo out of office led to something better, or at least the opportunity for us to create something better together.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we got 18 days to go and we shouldn't get complacent, but I'll tell you, when we beat this guy, I think we should be expansive, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do we want to do? What do we have the opportunity to do now that we haven't had to do? And, did Trump represent a wake-up call to all of us? Like, we got this close, right? Like, the car tipped over the edge of the cliff, and we just barely climbed out. So I'm looking forward to what comes next.
Look, Americans are fundamentally optimistic.
Yeah.
And one thing I think we've proved in a little way, and maybe in a big way, is that you can take on a terrible challenge and overcome it. Mm-hmm. You can take on something that looks like the end of everything and overcome it. And if we win, which I think we're in good shape to do, as long as everybody keeps up the speed, keeps up the work, we can take a little victory lap, but then we've got to get to build.
Sure.
There's a lot of work to do after that.
Otherwise, it's Canada, here we come.
Yeah.
I'm going to Italy. I don't know about you. To hell with Canada. I love it. Too cold up there. The Canadians are the nicest people, and they gave us Schitt's Creek, which is my favorite show, and I love them. I love
absolutely,
you,
for sure.
I think we have some live callers.
So, guys, I want to. Let's get some live callers. Let's do it.
Hi, can you hear me? Is it my turn?
Yes, it's your turn. What's your name and where are you from?
I'm Linda. I'm from New Hampshire. However, I've only been here going on 2 years. I'm actually from Texas. And I've been a Republican most of my life. I voted for Reagan, Daddy Bush, as I call him, GW, McCain, and I voted for Donald Trump. And I say that with sadness. And I just want to say I'm never going to vote for him ever again. So I switched my party affiliation. I'm a Democrat. And I voted for Biden already here in New Hampshire by mail.
Good for you.
What was the turning point for you?
Good for you.
Yeah. What was the turning point
for me?
For you?
I was still in Texas when it happened, when they started putting the children and separating from their parents. It broke my heart. And if any of you have spent any time in Texas, you know, there are a lot of Hispanic people that my neighbors, I had neighbors, I have friends that are Hispanic. And it's not like it's up here where you don't really know anybody that's Hispanic. Down in Texas, there's so many Hispanic people that I could just see my friends and we just hug each other and cry. We couldn't believe that our government was doing that. Wow. I spoke up about it to someone, and I remember that person said to me, well, they shouldn't have brought him here. And I knew right then I need to get away from these people, because this is the wrong way to look at this whole deal. No one has lived the life that these people have lived, has suffered the way these people have suffered. And they had to bring their children here. But anyway, I don't want to get off on that. The only thing I want to thank Donald Trump for is waking me up to politics. I will say this. All my life, I voted. Like, I knew who I wanted for president. I knew who I wanted for governor. But I didn't really pay attention to state representatives or county clerks or anything like that. I just go, and if I like the name, it sounded familiar to me, I would vote. I would vote for that person. I would vote if they were Republican. I would vote for them. I know I voted for Cornyn a few times, but I'd like to see him lose to Hagar now.
He's trying his best.
He's working on it. He's working on it.
I hope so.
Damn sure.
Well, thank you so very much for coming on.
I just want to say the only thing I can thank Donald Trump for is waking me up to politics and making me get involved. I've read books. I've watched documentaries. I've talked to people. I've protested a Trump rally in Manchester, New Hampshire in 2019. It was glorious.
Good for you.
And I just want to say this man needs to go. And I wish him well. I hope he just goes on and fades off into the sunset so we can get this country back.
Amen, sister. We're working on it.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you
Folks,
so much.
let's roll out a tweet next, shall we?
So may I just say one quick thing? So I went to high school and college in Texas, and the first big person I worked for was then Governor George W. Bush. Wow. And, he was obviously a Republican, but he worked very well with Democrats. I think in his 98 reelection campaign, I think he got something like 40 or 45% of the Latino vote. And in Texas, and I lived in California too, and the thing about Texas was that it was a very much, if you've made it here, we really don't care.
Right.
It's like you made it. You're a Texan, right? Regardless if you're from down in the valley or you're from out in El Paso or if you're up in Lubbock or Dallas or wherever it might be. Where then you got to California and the Republican Party, going back 25 years now, was so ugly about the racial animus between what they considered themselves to be the proprietors and the progenitors of California and the Latino population. I just always found it a fascinating and somewhat disheartening, extremely disheartening dichotomy. So anyway, on to tweets.
Right? On to tweets. Let's pull up a tweet here. All right. After Biden wins, will you be offering your service to the Biden administration to continue mending fences? I can't read the rest of it because there's a camera in my way.
Help get all political parties to be united in helping us move forward as a nation.
Well, I think we need to do that in a broad way, folks, in this country. I think that as we come into the Biden era, the first 2 years, as Reed always says, are almost certainly going to be filled with two big agenda items. It's not the Green New Deal. It's not anything else. It's COVID. COVID is not going away. It's going to have to be managed and dealt with, and we're going to unite as a country to do the grown-up things, do the things that are not going to be easy. There are going to be more closures. There are going to be more ways we have to learn to be disciplined about masks, social distancing, sanitation, hand washing, all these things. That's going to be a big part of the first couple of years. We're also going to have to unite as a country in a way that deals with the fact that we've had a huge economic dislocation that is going to hurt Americans. We've had 8 million people slip into poverty in the last 90 days.
Right.
This country is in a ditch, and we're going to have to work together. And if the Republicans in the Senate think that blocking stimulus after Joe Biden is president as a way to hurt him and to hurt the Democrats in 2022 is a great political and moral position to take,
right.
I welcome them to having a smaller minority than they're going to have after this election.
For sure.
You know?
No, I think that's right, and I think that we've talked about this again. Is what we think as part of the Lincoln Project comes next is serving as that coalition partner for the vice president or then President Biden, because I think that's right. I think that a lot of the things he'll have to do will have to be broad based and bipartisan. We'll have to remember, we'll have to sometimes remind our Democratic friends what we need to focus on, and we'll have to remind our Republican friends what it is their responsibilities are to the American people. And I think that we should. We've never been afraid of going into these places, with our eyes open, and I don't think we should stop there. I think that absolutely there's a lot of healing. As Lincoln said in his his second inaugural, we will have to bind up the wounds of the country in the wake of this. And I also think and I'll stop talking, is that we are also at this inflection point. From an economic perspective, from a technological perspective, from a public health perspective, from a public education perspective, where I don't think that all the things we've been doing since 1947 should necessarily be continued just because we've been doing them since the end of World War II.
Right.
So
we were going to have an economic transition, a wrenching economic transition because of AI and automation and the lighter footprint of manufacturing.
Right.
So we're going to have, there's a lot of work to do going forward on the economic side. So Tara, we got another tweet?
I think we do. But before that, I'm told that there's a Trump retweet. I think that constitutes part of the drinking game. So there's been 2 already during the time we've been on here. Did he retweet any QAnon? That is the question. If he retweeted QAnon, then I guess
it's only a matter of time.
He did the other day.
And if there's any QAnon
only
threats,
a matter of time.
Right, any QAnon threats against Rick Wilson, I guess we can add that to the list of drinking game.
Well, that's a telephone book. That's not it's not a pamphlet. That's not famous Jewish sports legend.
By the way, we are not in Gitmo, just so you know.
No.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
All right, what's the tweet?
Right.
What was the worst news for Rudy today? His big story was Russian propaganda, or his daughter endorsed Joe Biden. So for those who don't know, Rudy Giuliani's daughter has decided to become outspoken, and she endorsed Joe Biden. She wrote an op-ed about it, and she was actually on CNN tonight with Anderson Cooper, which I was watching a little bit of before we went on air. And she basically said that enough was enough, and that she didn't want November 3rd and November 4th to roll around and feel as though she didn't do enough to help get rid of Donald Trump. So it speaks volumes when it speaks volumes when you go up against a family member like that. I mean, I'm sure it's not easy when it's your parent. And but then again, I guess when your parent is Rudy Giuliani, it makes it a little bit easier. But she said that she's been, she's grown up in politics her whole life, and she has seen the uglier side of it. And she tried to make her own way without trying to ride the coattails of her last name, which she has. She's a successful filmmaker and things. But she felt that this time she needed to use her name and her political power to speak out against Donald Trump because it was that important to save the country. So good for her.
Well, you're the Rudy expert.
I will say this: when I worked for Rudy, she was a little kid,
right?
So I don't know her as a grown person, but look, I think Rudy has had a strange ambition that Donald Trump was going to be a last flash of relevance for him, and I say this all the time: if he had left politics after the 2008 campaign, opened a foundation, run his business, when he passed on, people would be naming high schools after him. They'd put a statue of him in New York. And now he's going to go down in the history books in infamy and embarrassment and shame and humiliation as a guy who squandered his entire legacy to try to serve Donald Trump and get a little buzz off the Fox News fumes in the closing twilight years. It's a tragedy in a lot of different dimensions.
No, Christie's the same way.
Yeah, of course.
And these were all respectable people.
Right.
And now, I mean,
Well, now Chris Christie
Not
has
so
found
much.
has found religion after spending 7 days in the ICU, COVID positive. He's now on an
He did,
apology
isn't that
tour.
amazing?
Yeah, he's on an apology tour now, talking about how I should have been more responsible and we should have taken this more seriously and I should have worn a mask and now everyone needs to too. Well, how nice of you, Governor Christie, to finally come to that conclusion 218,000
At
dead
long
Americans
last.
later. Outrageous. I believe we have a caller, a live caller.
Let's do
Who
it.
is our next victim tonight? Welcome, sir. What is your name and where are you from?
DJ McGuire from Suffolk, Virginia. I came with my own meme, as you can see. Thank you. And I get my question for you all is, what drove me out of the Republican Party was Trump's isolationism, his protectionism, and his nativism, which he was kind enough to reveal to all of us within, say, 3 days or so after he went down the escalator in 2015. When he got nominated in 2016, I realized that the rot was pretty deep within the Republican Party and that the party as a whole has some very serious problems. And I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, assuming Trump does lose, which I hope he does, especially because the Taliban endorsed him last weekend. I thought that would be enough.
Pretty solid endorsement.
Nice.
How deep into the 2020s or later will it take before the Republican Party becomes something that is worthy of anyone's support or cooperation again? How long will it take?
It's a mystery. It's going to have to be they're going to have a hard road back. And you can already see there's an article in the Washington Post today about the Trump revisionism is already starting. Oh, yeah. And that's why Ben Sasse came out and the speech of Ben Sasse's that leaked about him saying all these critical things about Trump. Well, the problem is the voters understand what they did. They know what these guys did. They know that they were aware of who and what Trump was and lied to the American people and their constituents about it, violated their oath of office to protect Trump. And so they're going to pay for that for, I think, a very long time.
And we will help them pay for it.
Yes.
Indeed.
We will indeed. So great question.
Yes.
Great question. Appreciate you. And send us that meme. We're going to steal it.
Very good. Will do.
I don't know if Novichok. Doesn't quite roll off.
Doesn't really. It's so very Russian.
Maybe Rudy Giuliani can say it better.
Let's get another tweet up, shall we?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to take that, Rick.
Too late.
Yeah.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Too late.
Please.
QAnon is the new Tea Party. Right. They have infected the GOP.
Right.
Just as the Tea Party changed the character of the Republican Party in a response that was both that was for a brief moment about spending, taxes, the Constitution, and changed into craziness. It's too late now. It's in the DNA.
No, yeah, I think the ugliness and the nativism that the last caller was talking about, and frankly the racism. I mean, they've been metastatic. They've grown. They've overtaken the host at this point. And so I don't know if there's any radical therapy, if we're going to keep in the sort of medical metaphor space, is possible. I mean, if it was gangrenous, you could cut off your arm, but this is just spread throughout the body politic. So it's going to be decades.
QAnon is everywhere. I think we have an asset for that. Tenants of the queue. I can't see it. There's a camera in my way.
It looks like a comic book from like when we were.
What the hell?
Cabal of Satanist pedophiles.
Okay, yeah. I'll read the second one. All right, and then we have Trump will arrest them all. And third is Q will reveal all. Remember, where they go one, they go all.
Where they go one, they go stupid.
Right.
So, isn't there something about?
I mean, it's truly amazing.
We forgot something about the baby blood drinking entertainers. Like, doesn't Oprah drink baby blood or something?
Of course, it's a global Satanist pedophile ring that eats children. But
you're missing. It's funded by George Soros and managed by the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah, clearly.
So, I mean, clearly it all works itself out.
I mean, what other explanation is there for opposition to Donald Trump?
I mean, don't go in a pizza parlor with your kid. That's all I can say.
Clearly.
Terrible.
The greatest part about that article about Sue Collins funding the QAnon people today was they used a picture of her eating pizza.
Stop it.
Could not have been better.
Oh my gosh.
Could not have been better.
For those who don't know what we're talking about, just
man.
to remind folks that a couple years ago, there was this thing called Pizzagate. And it was this idea that the Clintons were running a child sex trafficking ring out of a very well-known pizza shop in Washington, D.C. And some crazy believed this, and he went there and shot up the pizza place. And thank God he didn't kill anyone, but that was known as Pizzagate. So that's the reference. And this was a couple years ago, before QAnon was really on the map mainstream the way we know of it now. But this thing has been percolating and becoming more and more prevalent. And now we have a congressional candidate who will be a congresswoman, gee whiz. And the president of the United States is retweeting them and will not denounce them even on a national stage. It's frightening.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What do we have next?
Right.
Okay.
Amazing.
I think we got one more tweet.
Can the Lincoln Project make some tiki themed
Can the Lincoln
flag?
Project
Reed?
Yes, Philip,
so.
if you're
Philip,
watching.
if you're watching, get on it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. He's around here somewhere. There he is. There he is.
There's Tiki.
There he is.
Tiki. Yes.
Big T.
That's right.
All
right. Yes, swag is on the way.
We have Trump
Swag
tweeted.
is on the way.
We had a tiki sighting, so that is a toast. We have a double. We have a twofer. Oh my! Well, we're going to keep that as one collective sip.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we don't know what's in Nate's cup or what's in Rick's cup, so we're not going to make them take any more than one sip.
Tequila.
Yeah, I don't blame you. As hard as you guys work,
I think Nate's got the good stuff today.
Yeah, Nate's working it.
He deserves it.
All right.
He deserves it.
Okay. Well, I think that exhausts our tweets for the moment and our callers, but let's get into the D block, Tara.
Yes, I think we have a call to action that we are going to remind folks and read.
Yes.
We didn't get a chance to do this the other night, but you were instrumental in getting this partnership between the Lincoln Project and Democracy Labs. And it's in line with our continued effort to inform our supporters and our viewers about ways to combat voter suppression and for voter education and information. So in partnership with Democracy Labs, they have an initiative called the See Something, Say Something 2020 initiative. And what this does is if you see voter intimidation anywhere, if you see some kind of chicanery going on, you can go to their website, csay2020.com, and you'll see a checklist of things that they're looking for. But you can also do a hashtag csay2020 to report and document what you see in voter suppression, and it happens in real time. And we think this is important because we see that there's more and more efforts to try to interfere with voters trying to vote, particularly in key swing states and in minority communities. So that is really, really important. And this way, people can have an opportunity to report that. And so remember, it's Say 2020 in line with the See Something, Say Something back in the day. So that is our call to action this week. Rick?
Well, thank you so much, Tara. I want to thank Nate Nesbitt, Reed Galen, and John Sipher for joining us tonight. And before we go, I want to encourage you folks to check out our sister show, which airs 3 times a week during the day with Jennifer Horn. It is Vote for America. And you can catch it streaming on our Lincoln Project YouTube channel. All right. You can also join us again Monday night. We have a very... you got it? I got it?
Yeah, you got it, Rick. Go ahead. You're on a roll, my friend.
I think we've lost... I thought we lost Tara's audio there. Join us again Monday night. We have a very cool guest. It is Coach Steve Kerr of the Golden State Warriors.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah.
That's awesome.
You should come in, man.
That's very cool.
Good night for the breakdown, folks. We're going to leave you with a clip from our podcast.
Sure. That'd be awesome.
The thing is about leadership, some of the most important and most consequential decisions that a leader makes are the decisions they make when the rest of us can't see them, particularly a president. The most weighty decisions that a president makes are those where we don't all get to eavesdrop and listen in. Maybe the health of the nation is at stake, or the safety of the nation is at stake. And then what we have to be able to count on is their character. Are they going to have us in mind, not them? Because leaders serve. And if you don't have character, you only care about yourself. You don't care about those you're supposed to be serving. Will they have honesty and integrity? So that's why character is so important. John McCain, I didn't agree with him on absolutely everything. But the reason he survived and endured 5.5 years in a prisoner of war camp in Vietnam is because he had character. He knew what he was fighting for. He knew who he was.
Go do corporate comms for them.
No one was going to take
It'd be
that
a lot
away
less
from him.
stressful.
And I see that same set of qualities in Joe Biden. And by the way, I believe it is why John McCain and Joe Biden were such good friends, because they recognized that about each other.
We just want to say a final
Well, thanks,
good night.
everybody.
Yes. Good night,
we
everyone.
had a little bit of audio crosstalk at the end there, but we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you again on Monday.
Rough 4 years.
You can say that again.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.